So I'm going to cover a couple of things in this video, so if you just came for a certain part, then there are the timestamps so you can go to whatever part you would like. Now, for me, I grew up with Jeepers Creepers. He wasn't like in my house or anything, because well, when you hear what I have to say about it, then you realize that's pretty messed up. But it was that horror franchise that I saw as a kid, and it just freaked me out. Because in my opinion, the best part of a horror movie, or what makes a good horror movie, is when it sticks with you, and it like jacks up your life. Like, if you watch a horror movie and you can still live normally, you're still sane, then that horror movie was a waste of time. Take Psycho, for example. You can't shower the same after you watch that. You can't just prounce into the water after Jaws. Ain't nobody camping in the woods without a gun and a cross. And for me, growing up, we would always go on these massive road trips. And Jeepers Creepers kind of ruined that, because in the first movie, the Creeper had a song that would play to signify that he was following you in your car, and that song was Jeepers Creepers. But what would happen is that the radio would just randomly lose signal, and static would take over, and that's all the radio does when you're crossing Oklahoma. So needless to say, that movie stuck with me, and so did the sequel, since cornfields is all I would pass when we were driving. But after that sequel, nothing. Till they made Jeepers Creepers 3 almost 2 decades later on a budget of Trident gum. Now, I know the movies aren't fantastic. I know that they've aged. They're cheesy. They're not the greatest thing in the world. But I've told you why I personally connect with them. And as I get older and wanting to make films, I always think about franchises and different genres. And specifically in the horror genre, I've always thought, like, if I had to do a series, if I had to direct, they came up to me, they're like, Mr. A to Z, can you do this series for us? Jeepers Creepers would probably be the one that I want to do. Mainly because there's like thousands of years of backstory that I can get into, so instead of it taking place now or in the future, I can go back to like village times, and I would never disclose that it was a Jeepers Creepers sequel at all. I would just have it be this dark, Vivitch-like movie where people are getting attacked by some creature, throw in some political message in a female lead so I can get funding, and then boom! Blow away the 4 people who remember Jeepers Creepers when they see the connection. Probably connect the church or something in there, but if they make a movie like that, you heard it here first. But for those who don't know the story of the Creeper, don't care my connection with it, and just want spoilers or a recap, whatever it is, then I'm about to get into all 3 stories right now. So, the Creeper. It's this ancient demon-like being who looks like the ugly cousin of Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers, and his thing is that he only comes out every 23rd spring for 23 days. To feast on people before going back into hibernation, of course. He likes whistling. His favorite song is the 1938 tune Jeepers Creepers by Harry Warren. He likes taking human eyeballs as well as other human bodies, which he consumes in order to reanimate his own. Oh, and he can do this. There's even a deleted scene from the second film that kind of hints at different time periods that the Creeper has tormented, and it's hinted that he's meant to be an ungodly being that comes to feast on fear, but I don't think the writers have fully fleshed out his origin, hence the issue with the 3rd movie. But as for the first, we see the Creeper just going about his day, driving his truck with the license plate Be Eating You, on it just tossing bodies at a church when a brother and sister spot him, and he spots them, and they spot him spotting them, and he goes to kill him. Trisha does escape, but it's the brother who not only dies, but gets his eyes gouged out in order for the Creeper to get new peepers. We also see his art collection made out of human organs and skin, of course, and see that he has a degree in taxidermy. It's also kind of implied by fans that every time he consumes a new person, he pretty much takes their abilities and memories, which is why he's probably able to drive a car, spell horribly, and has a southern accent.
She don't smell too good. There he is.
Now, 3 days after the events from the first movie is when the second movie takes place. The Creeper is cosplaying as a scarecrow when he decides to attack a farm. The following day, he attacks a school bus carrying a high school basketball team and their cheerleaders and starts picking at them one by one. There's a chick who randomly goes, "That's so Raven," for no apparent reason whatsoever, other than the fact that it conveniently spews out exposition for them to understand what the Creeper is about. But there is a theory that it's the Creeper who gives her that power, considering that in the 3rd movie, they show you this little subplot that by touching him, he actually gives you insight into his origins. Why would he want to do that, considering that he literally chases loose ends to make sure there's nothing about him? I don't know. The farmers then arrive to the rescue and mutilate the Creeper, but right as my dude is stabbing him, the Creeper goes into hibernation and they can't do anything with his cocoon. 23 years later, which would be close to our present time, they set up a little meet and greet to make money off the creeper as a sideshow attraction while the old farmer waits any day for the creeper to awaken. That's what leads us to the third film, which most definitely answers all of the questions that we still have on the creeper, continues the story, and satisfies the decade and a half that people have been waiting for, right? Absolutely not. Like, it doesn't even do one of the three. Now, for those who haven't seen the third and have been waiting, I don't want to spoil it for you, so if you want to see it, definitely go watch it if you want to. But for those who don't care about spoilers, or who just want to heed this warning that I need to give you, listen up. You see, they had a poster and a title for what the third movie was supposed to be about, and where the sister from the first is still alive, and she even has a kid named after her brother. She would eventually meet up with the old man to take the creeper down. We would learn about his origins, and it seems like they were all going to connect through a cathedral, but nah, let's just scrap that idea. And what confuses me the most is that they still made a third movie, so they had a budget to make something, and instead they did this, which was a cop-out in order to make a prequel. It's just literally just poop out something to still make more money off of the people who you know have been waiting for your movie. What's worse about it, though, is that this was a Fathom event, which means that if you've gone to the movies, you know movie tickets are an arm and a leg. Fathom events are like a mortgage. And the theaters sold out. Like, I'm not talking showtimes, I'm talking theaters. I had to travel 30 minutes to go watch this in a theater that was 30 minutes away. But what's worse than not telling you that it's a prequel that's super redundant is trying to play it off like it's some cool twist at the end of the movie. Now, let me back up a bit. The movie does start off decent. The creeper shows up in his truck and he's killed a couple of dudes. The police squad is surrounding it, and for a second you think that the whole film is going to be one of those bottle films where it takes place in one location and the big problem is going to be trying to figure out how to get into this truck because it's just this deathly puzzle game, and it seems like that's going to be the case, and no. While the beginning has a decent tone and you're introduced to the two officers who are hunting down the creeper, these annoying teenagers, a crazy grandma who lost her son to the creeper years ago and she's hesitating to dig up what he buried in the backyard, and her granddaughter who forced to live with her, it's that second half that not only ruins the movie, it almost ruins the entire franchise, because this not only feels like a prequel, it feels like they shot this before the first two movies. And yeah, you know the creeper is going to kill these kids. He ends up killing the sheriff. The grandma digs up what her deceased son buried in the back, and you find out that it's the creeper's chopped off hand, which he touched and now she touched, and you realize that that causes you to not only float, but it gives you this vision of the entirety of the creeper's origins. Multiple people touch this thing. They have the vision. They don't tell you what that vision is at all. Your main survivors end up being the sheriff, since he appears in the first, the girl and her grandma, and Tommy from Stranger Things, who reveals that this is a prequel by putting on his Letterman jacket and getting on the bus from the second movie. You then assume the creeper would go and do what he does in the first, where the officer tries to kill him. He then makes it to the cornfields and attacks the bus. He gets got, hibernates, and we're still waiting for him to wake up. Oh, they did, however, add a little post scene in the third movie involving Trisha from the first, all grown up, typing some book on a Mac, speaking to the audience on how she's going to avenge her brother. Why not just make that the movie instead? If you've been waiting for this movie and you really want to watch it, and if you did and you dug it, then I'm glad for you, but this is the part where I have to cover why I not only dislike it, but why I don't think people should be wasting their money on this thing. Like I said, I like the first two. Looking back on them, they're not great and they can be guilty pleasures, so maybe the third one will be that to someone, but when you keep talking about this other script idea that's supposed to actually move the story forward, and you give us literally Rogue One, no. Like I said, what makes a good horror movie? When it messes you up. This movie not only doesn't do that, it ruins the character of Jeepers Creepers, because the other rule in horror movies is shoot them at night, not in broad daylight. They were clearly happy with the Creeper's makeup, so this thing is lit brighter than a Corona commercial. You see every crevice, the man is whistling as he preps his truck. He practically looks like the Undertaker after a press conference, and for me, it ultimately wasn't scary, but it also ruined the character. Suffice to say that I really don't like this movie, and I think it's a terrible sequel, and to make it a Fathom event, to bank on the audience, your cult audience who really wants to support this franchise, is not only bogus, But it's not even the main issue with this movie, because there's a debate that goes even beyond film fans, beyond the film community, and that's being able to separate the art from the artist. And I know that there's a bunch of debates about this, and I can only speak for myself and say what I feel in terms of this debate, and not saying that that's, word and that that's what you have to keep it. In my mindset, I'm very well aware that art, especially movies, is still created by a bunch of other people. I know that there is way more than one person who puts in effort and months of work, and I know that the creation of a story can stand on its own or affect people who may not even know anything about the filmmakers. And that was the case for me in the first two movies, and even with this one, which leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. If you're watching the movies and you enjoy them and know nothing about the case, then I leave it to you. But I feel you should be informed, because my one exception to being able to separate art from the artist is when the artist can't separate that art from himself. Like, if Woody Allen made a movie about marrying your own daughter, nope. If Roman Polanski tried making his rendition of The Hunt, nope. And here you have the director and writer Victor Salva, who in 1988 was convicted of sexually molesting a child who was a co-star in his film. On top of having oral sex with a 12-year-old boy, he videotaped one of the encounters and was even found to be in possession of videos and magazines containing child pornography. The man only served 15 months. Now, I bring this up because in the third movie, a movie I already claimed to be hot dookie, he has a subplot with the granddaughter character, who it's implied was molested by her father, and that's why she lives with her grandma. But the way it's brought up is during a scene where Freckles here is trying to help her out, but his coworker just tries to flirt with her, and Freckles says, "Yo, dude, something along the lines of, relax, she went through a lot at home with her stepdad, and that's why she's now here with a crazy grandma." And the dude replies with, "Well, can you blame him? I mean, look at her. The heart wants what the heart wants." It's not only something that's jacked up that this dude who's accused wrote himself, but in the story, this character survives, and if you know anything about themes in horror movies, the characters that survive are usually the ones who are the ones who are morally correct, so it's kind of jacked up. Even more so, does that make the whole idea for the creeper, a being who feasts on the fear of others and consumes their body parts, just an allegory for his sick desires? Like, if we wanted to talk about change, and I'm for that, people can change, and I'm rooting for them, but one, the man didn't even serve his punishment. He didn't do his full sentence for the crime he committed. And two, if you really want to talk about the forgiveness card, then that person needs to repent, not come out and continue writing stories where he's showing off his sick desires. Again, if you've been waiting for this movie and you're someone who can't separate art from the artist, I'm not judging you. I don't think that's a bad thing, considering that for those who will really pounce on you and try to protest it, there are movies, music, freaking politicians that we vote in who we know nothing about, and they may be doing even more jacked up stuff. At the same time, this is a scenario where if you're not informed about this disgusting case, I think you deserve to know about it. Now, I still think you shouldn't watch the movie because it's a bad movie. Like that's one of the main reasons why you shouldn't watch this movie. But it's funny that when you consider how I felt that, this sequel is going to be the thing that tarnishes this entire franchise, and then you find out about this, and it just makes you think that sometimes the scariest part about movies is not even what's on screen.
I don't care what the weatherman says when the weatherman says it's raining. You'll never hear me complaining. I'm certain the sun will shine. I don't care how the weather vane points when the weather vane points to gloomy. It's gotta be sunny to me when your eyes look into mine. Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those creepers? Jeepers.